Look at your life right now. Not your calendar. Not your resume. Your actual life. There's probably a guitar you haven't touched in 4 months. A notebook with 3 pages of a business plan. A folder on your desktop called Learn Spanish that you open twice. A gym phase, a cooking phase, a brief but intense interest in beekeeping. And right now, something new is already pulling at your attention. Something completely unrelated to everything else. And the feeling that comes with all of this is a very specific kind of shame. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that shows up when someone asks, "So what are you focused on?" And you don't have a clean answer. Society has a name for you. They call you a dilettante, scattered, unfocused, a jack of all trades, master of none. And you've probably used that phrase to describe yourself. Maybe even as a joke to soften the discomfort. But here's what almost no one tells you. That's not the full quote. The real quote is, "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one." Someone cut the second half off. And then the world used the fragment to make you feel broken. What if you're not broken? What if you're not scattered? What if you're just built for a world that hasn't fully arrived yet? To understand why your brain works the way it does, you have to understand a shift that most people never think about. For the last 100 years or so, the world ran on what psychologists call a kind learning environment. In a kind environment, the rules are stable. The feedback is clear. Practice the same thing long enough and you get better. Specialize deeply enough and you succeed. Think about a golfer. The ball, the club, the course, it's all consistent. If you practice your swing for 10,000 hours, that practice pays off in predictable ways. The rules don't change. That's the world the I-shaped person, the specialist, was built for. Go deep in one narrow field. Become indispensable. Win. But that is not the world you are living in. The modern world is what psychologists call a wicked learning environment. The rules change constantly. Feedback is delayed or misleading. And the skills that made you valuable last decade might not even exist as jobs next decade. Think about the difference between that golfer and a firefighter. Every fire is different. Every building is different. The firefighter cannot rely on one fixed set of rules. They have to read the situation, pull from multiple domains, adapt in real time. In a wicked world, the specialist, the person who dug one hole a mile deep, is actually fragile. If the industry shifts, they have nothing to stand on. But your brain has been sensing this, unconsciously, and that's why you keep drifting. You weren't failing to focus. You were refusing to be fragile. Now, if focusing deeply is the I shape, the opposite mistake is the dash shape, knowing a little bit about everything but having no real depth anywhere. And this is the trap that many curious people fall into. Feels like freedom, but it creates a quiet, constant anxiety because there's no ground under your feet. You have no place to stand. And standing nowhere means you can't build anything from it. There is a third shape, and this one was built for people like you. It's called the M-shaped mind, or the polymath profile. Picture the letter M. 2 tall pillars connected at the top. The pillars are your areas of deep mastery, the things you went all the way into. The bridge connecting them is your natural curiosity, your cross-domain thinking, your ability to move between worlds. Here's a concrete example. Imagine your first pillar is data science. You went deep there, that's what pays the bills. Your second pillar is storytelling. You spent years writing, creating, communicating. And your bridge is your interest in psychology, history, and human behavior. Suddenly you aren't just a distracted data scientist. You become the person who takes complex numbers and turns them into a story a CEO can actually act on. That combination, almost no one has it, and almost every organization desperately needs it. The mechanism that makes this work has a name in psychology. It's called far transfer. A specialist uses near transfer, applying a skill to a problem they've seen before using tools they already know. But a polymath uses far transfer. They take a structure from one completely unrelated field and apply it somewhere no one else thought to look. A person who understands how a tree's root system branches outward might suddenly see a better way to organize a company's entire database. A musician who understands harmony and counterpoint might look at a code base and see a more elegant way to structure it. That is not chaos. That is innovation. All those random obsessions you've had, they were never wasted. They are building a library of metaphors that no specialist will ever have access to. And at some point, maybe years from now, two of those things will connect in a way that changes everything for you. But knowing this doesn't make the daily anxiety disappear. Because here's the trap that catches almost every M-shaped person. They try to build all the pillars at the same time. They're learning data science, writing a novel, and starting a business, all in the same month. And they collapse. Not because they lack discipline, but because you cannot pour concrete into two foundations simultaneously. The answer is what's called serial mastery. You build one pillar at a time. You commit to a season 6 months, maybe 18 months, and you go deep into one thing until you've reached real fluency. Not world-class expertise. Just the point where you can solve most common problems without running back to the instruction manual. And this is crucial. You make a conscious choice to move on. Not because you failed, because you finished that season of construction. This is not the same as quitting. The dabbler quits when something gets hard. The polymath practices strategic quitting, a deliberate graduation from one phase of building to the next. Now, the question that paralyzes most people, which pillar do I build first? The anxiety of that choice is what keeps many curious people stuck for years, analyzing instead of building. So here's how to lower the stakes. You aren't choosing for the rest of your life. You're choosing for this season. A good first pillar is usually either the one that creates the most financial stability, the one that becomes the platform everything else stands on, or the one that has the most energy around it right now. Pick that one. And commit. There's a second part of this that most people never reframe correctly. The day job. Many of the great polymaths throughout history held what looked like ordinary, unremarkable jobs. Einstein worked as a patent clerk while he was quietly rewriting our understanding of time and space. The job wasn't beneath him. It was protecting him. It gave him stable ground and a mind that wasn't fully consumed, which meant he had leftover cognitive energy to wander the universe at night. Your day job can work the same way if you let it. Not every job has to be your passion. In fact, a high-passion, high-stress job that consumes 110% of you might actually be the thing that's keeping you stuck. Because when you pour everything in, there's nothing left for the exploration your brain needs. A low-drain job that pays well enough is a strategic asset. It's not settling. It's building a platform that lets the rest of your life actually happen. There's one final piece, and this one is practical. Your brain generates more ideas than it can hold. You are a high-output idea factory operating with a very small workbench. When the workbench is full, nothing new can be built. And when you can't capture things, you lose them, and then you feel guilty for forgetting them, which makes you hesitate to explore new things, which makes everything worse. You need a system. The sociologist Niklas Luhmann published over 70 books in his lifetime. His secret wasn't superhuman focus. It was a note-taking system he called the Zettelkasten, a web of linked index cards, one idea per card, connected to related ideas over time. He never tried to write a whole book at once. He just captured one thought, linked it to another, and watched the connections multiply over decades. You don't need index cards. You need Notion or Obsidian, or even a simple folder of text files. When you fall into a week-long obsession with medieval architecture, take notes. Write down what fascinated you. Then let it go without guilt. Because 3 years from now, when you're designing a website and nothing feels right, you might open that folder and realize that the load-bearing structure of a cathedral is exactly what this navigation needs to be. That is the moment of magic. But it only happens if you captured the dot. So let's bring this all the way back to the beginning. That graveyard of half-finished projects. It's not evidence of failure. It's evidence of a mind that was calibrated for a wicked world. Every abandoned interest is a semester in a university you built yourself. Every phase is a pillar, even if it doesn't look like one yet. You weren't supposed to be one thing. You were designed to be the bridge between worlds that specialists can't even see from inside their single lane. The path forward isn't to finally pick one thing and force yourself to love only that forever. The path forward is to stop building everything at once. Pick the first pillar. Build it until it holds weight. Use your job as the stable ground. Capture your sparks so you can connect them later. and trust that the M you're building slowly, seasonally, imperfectly is exactly the shape the future is going to need. Drop a comment below and tell me which pillar you're building right now. And if this felt like something you needed to hear, there's a lot more where this came from, linked in the description.